I was 23 the year I moved into that apartment. A studio on the 5th floor, barely bigger than a storage unit, with squeaky radiators and peeling paint. But it was cheap, $600 a month in Chicago, which felt like a miracle. I told myself I could handle the roaches, the creaky pipes, and the fact that the elevator only worked half the time. The place only had one window and it faced a narrow alley. Across from me stood another building that looked almost identical. Same bricks, same fire escapes bolted to the walls, same rows of square windows. The alley between us was so tight that if I leaned out too far, I felt like I could almost touch the building across the way. At first, it was comforting. I bartended late nights, and when I came home around 3 in the morning, I'd see the other apartments across the alley. Warm yellow lights spilling out, TV screens flickering, silhouettes of strangers moving about. It made me feel less alone. But then, things changed. The first time I noticed it, it was subtle. I was microwaving leftover pizza one night when out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker from across the alley. Not a light, not movement, just something. When I turned my head, it was gone. The window directly across from mine was pitch black, the curtain drawn tight. I remember frowning because I'd lived there nearly a month and I'd never once seen that curtain move. Never a light on inside. It looked abandoned. But the next night it happened again. I flipped on my lamp and I swear in that exact moment the curtain across the alley shifted. Just slightly, like someone had pinched the edge and tugged it back, only for a second, and then let it fall again. It could have been my imagination, it should have been my imagination. Except after that, it started happening regularly. Every night I came home exhausted from my shift, the same thing would happen. I'd turn on my lights, I'd set my bag down, and then a subtle movement across the alley, a faint shift of fabric. A hand maybe watching. The worst part? My landlord had told me that unit was vacant, had been for months. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was nothing. But after a week, I couldn't stop noticing little details. I'd sit at my desk, typing on my laptop, and I'd feel it. The weight of unseen eyes. I'd look up and sure enough, that curtain would tremble. Not blowing in the wind, not random. It was always in response to me. I even tested it once. I stood in the middle of my apartment, motionless, staring at the window across the way. For 5 long minutes, nothing happened. My chest tightened, my eyes burned. Just as I was about to give up, the curtain twitched, like a finger curling, beckoning me closer. I turned off my lamp and didn't sleep that night. A few days later, I mentioned it to my landlord. I tried to keep my voice casual, like I wasn't actually scared out of my mind. Hey, that unit across from me, I thought you said it was empty. He nodded. Yeah, it is. Why? I thought I saw someone in the window. He frowned. Number, that place is sealed. No tenants since January. I've got the only key. I laughed it off, pretended I was just mistaken. But my stomach was in knots, because I knew what I'd seen. That night, things escalated. I came home later than usual, closer to 4 a.m. The alley was dark and quiet, littered with garbage bags waiting for pickup. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and turned on my lamp. The curtain across the alley was already pulled back, not just a sliver this time, pulled all the way, revealing a pitch-black apartment beyond. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. I could feel someone there. I couldn't see them, but I felt them watching me. I shut the lamp off instantly, heart hammering. My apartment was swallowed in darkness. For a long time, I sat on my bed, staring out the window. And then, the curtain slid shut. The next morning, there was a note, folded neatly, tucked into the crack of my door. Just one word scrawled in jagged handwriting. Hey. I don't think I've ever felt fear like that. Not the kind that makes you scream. The kind that sinks into your bones. that makes the air feel poisonous. I called the police. They came, took the note, checked the hallways, even walked me through the stairwells. Nothing. They shrugged and left like it was no big deal, but I couldn't let it go. That evening, I begged my landlord to open the vacant unit across from me. He resisted at first, muttering something about privacy and liability. But when I showed him the note, pale and shaking, he finally agreed. We went across together. The lock clicked and the door swung open with a groan. The air that poured out was stale and heavy, thick with dust. My landlord flicked the light switch. Nothing. The power was off. We stepped inside. The place was empty, completely stripped. No furniture, no belongings. Just 4 walls and bare floors, except for one thing. In the middle of the room, facing the window, sat a chair. A single metal chair, positioned so whoever sat there would have the perfect view into my apartment. My stomach dropped. The dust on the floor told the rest of the story, thick and undisturbed, except for footprints. Countless footprints circling the chair, pacing, waiting. My landlord muttered something I didn't catch and backed out fast. I followed him, too terrified to even look back. The police searched again, but of course they found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no squatters, no explanation for the chair. I packed my things that night and stayed with a friend. Within a week, I was out of that building for good. But even now, years later, I can't stop thinking about it. Night after night, while I lived there, someone sat in that chair, in the dark, watching me through the glass. And the worst part, I never once saw their face. When I was 12, my family moved to a quiet property in rural Oregon. It was a small 1-story house surrounded by thick pine forest. My parents loved it. Peace, fresh air, space to grow a garden. But what I remember most was the shed. It stood about 30 yards behind the house, old and leaning, half swallowed by weeds. Its paint had peeled to gray and the door hung crooked on rusted hinges. My dad always said he'd clear it out eventually, but for months it just sat there, looming in the backyard like a rotting tooth. The first strange thing happened one night in late October. Our dog Max, an old German shepherd, suddenly started barking like crazy at the shed. His hackles raised, teeth bared, growling in a way I'd never heard before. My dad grabbed a flashlight, but when he opened the door, the inside was empty. Just broken shelves, old boxes, the smell of mildew. The next morning, though, we found fresh footprints in the dirt leading straight to the shed. Boot prints, but none leading away. Over the following weeks, it became a pattern. Almost every night, Max would go wild, barking at that shed. And every morning, more footprints. Sometimes small like a child's. Sometimes huge, much larger than my dad's boots, always leading to the shed, never away. Then I started noticing things missing. A hammer from the garage, a can of beans from the pantry, a blanket from the laundry room. My parents thought I was misplacing things, but I knew someone was taking them, someone was living close. One night, just past midnight, I woke to the sound of crunching gravel outside my window. Careful, deliberate footsteps circling the house. I peeked through the blinds and froze. A tall man in a filthy gray coat stood just outside the shed, his head tilted upward, staring at my window. I screamed for my dad, who grabbed his rifle and ran outside. But when he got there, the man was gone. The next morning, Max was missing. His chain lay snapped in the dirt. We searched the woods for days, calling his name, but he never came back. That night, I saw the man again, standing by the shed, holding something in his hand. It glinted in the moonlight. When I looked closer, my stomach dropped. It was Max's collar. We called the police. They searched the shed top to bottom. What they found still gives me nightmares. Carvings in the dirt floor, strange symbols, circles, crude drawings of eyes, a pile of bones in one corner, some animal, some maybe not. And hidden behind a false wall, a backpack filled with stolen items, wallets, clothes, watches, things that didn't belong to us, along with a notebook, pages filled with disturbing sketches of families, notes about watching, about waiting, about me. We moved out within a week, but even now, years later, I still dream about that man, standing in the shadows just beyond the shed, waiting. In the summer of 2018, some friends and I decided to go camping in the Blue Ridge Mountains. There were 5 of us: me, Abby, Marcus, his brother Tim, and Tim's girlfriend Hannah. None of us were seasoned campers, but we wanted to unplug, to spend a weekend away from our phones and the noise of the city. The first day was perfect. We hiked, set up camp by a small clearing, built a fire, roasted marshmallows. The forest was alive with crickets, owls, the crackle of the fire. For a while, it felt like the world was miles away. But that night, things changed. As we sat around the fire, Marcus suddenly went quiet. "Did you see that?" he whispered. He pointed toward the tree line. We all looked, but there was nothing, just darkness and trees. He swore he saw someone moving out there. We laughed it off, probably a deer. But later, when the fire died down, we heard it. Slow, heavy footsteps circling the camp. I lay awake in my tent for hours listening. The sound of twigs snapping, leaves rustling, and then breathing. Right outside the thin nylon wall of my tent. Deep wheezing breaths inches from my head. My heart pounded so loud I thought whoever it was could hear it. But when I finally worked up the courage to unzip the flap, nothing was there. In the morning, we found footprints in the dirt, dozens of them, some normal shoe prints, some bare feet, human. That night, none of us could relax. We kept the fire blazing, whispering nervously. Around 2 in the morning, we heard it again. A voice, distant, calling from the woods. At first, it sounded almost like a child, but as it grew louder, it twisted, hoarse, strained, almost mocking. Marcus grabbed his flashlight and shined it toward the trees. And that's when we saw him. A naked man crouched low in the shadows, pale skin glowing in the light. He was staring at us, his eyes wide and unblinking. Then with a jolt, he scrambled away on all 4s like an animal. We were terrified. But we stayed, too afraid to hike out in the dark. We sat back to back, clutching whatever we could as weapons, jumping at every sound. Just before dawn, as I was finally drifting into a nervous half-sleep, I heard it. The slow rasp of a zipper. My tent shook as someone tugged at the flap from the outside. I screamed, and instantly the others shouted too. The figure bolted into the woods, crashing through the branches. When the sun rose, we didn't waste a second. We grabbed our gear and hiked until our legs gave out. By the time we reached a ranger station, we were pale and shaking. The ranger listened quietly, then sighed. He said, "You're not the first. There are people out there, men who've gone off the grid, living in the woods. Sometimes they just steal, sometimes worse. I've never gone camping since, and I never will."